It's time for this one now. Well, good morning, students from the School of Preaching and Biblical Studies, and good morning to viewers on the internet. Welcome to the Jamaica School of Preaching and Biblical Studies in Kingston, Jamaica. We hope that you will enjoy the classes and feel free to send any questions that you have on any of the lessons. The lesson is entitled Introduction to Biblical Hebrew, lesson number 10, Composite Shewa, Maqqeph, and Qames Hatuph. Now, before we begin, we're going to be going to God in prayer. So let us pray. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for another Hebrew class. I pray that you'll be with me, that I will be able to remember what I have put together in this lesson well enough that I will be able to explain it thoroughly and simply that everyone may understand, especially those that may be learning it for the first time. We pray, dear Father, that you will help us to have a mind to learn. Give us aptitude for languages, that we can master this language and to be able to use it in the preparation of lessons that we share with others. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so make sure that you sign your name on the register. We're going to be looking now at Composite Shewa, then Maqqeph, and Qames Hatuph. Viewers, don't panic. Just because these words look strange and you may never have seen them before, I hope that by the end of the lesson, you will understand what has been said. So the general objectives today are, number one, to examine composite Shewa. 2, to examine Maqqeph. And 3, to examine Qames Hatuph. That's all we'll be doing today, God willing. Let's now look at the specific objectives. And those who have just come in, after the class is over, I have some past tests to give back to you, both from last term and from this term. Okay, I keep having them to give back and do not get to give it back. Okay, so let's look at the specific objectives. At the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to define composite Shewa. We have already looked at another kind of Shewa. What was that Shewa called? Simple Shewa. So we're going to be looking at composite Shewa today. This actually belonged to last week's lesson, but I was not able to finish it within the time given. Number 2, at the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to identify 3 examples of composite Shewa. Number 3, at the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to write composite Shewa. 4, at the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to identify the consonants in the alphabet that are the only consonants that can take composite Shewa. Now, simple Shewa can go over most of the consonants in the alphabet, but there are certain consonants, there are 5 of them, that the simple Shewa will not go under. Okay, but only the composite Shewa can go under those. At the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to define Maqqeph. Next, at the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to give 2 examples in the English translation of the Bible of the use of Maqqeph. At the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to explain why Maqqeph is used. At the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to describe the effect of Maqqeph on the words. At the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to describe the effect of Maqqeph on accents and vowels. And finally, at the end of this lesson, the students should have been able to distinguish between Qames A, long A, and Hatuph, short A, which both have the same symbol, capital T. Now, let me just say it again. After the class is over at 12:20, because I'm letting you off as required by the administration 10 minutes earlier, I need everyone to stay behind just for a few seconds, literally, so I can hand you last term's final exam papers and whatever I have for you this term. Because I won't see you tomorrow, since you have a special project doing tomorrow. Now we come to Composite Shewa. Composite Shewa consists of a simple Shewa, one dot over another. So we still make use of this symbol in Composite Shewa. And that is written to the right hand or the right side of any one of these three short vowels, Hatuph. So if we were to make this into a composite Shewa, all you do is to put one dot here and another dot there to the right-hand side of Hatuph, and you would have composite Shewa Hatuph. Or Segol, it doesn't really look like this, but I couldn't do any better when I was trying to organize the shape on the PowerPoint. But it looks like an upside down triangle, not as sharp or acute as this, but more broad like over here and coming down. Segol is an upside down triangle with three dots. And if you want to turn this into a composite Shewa, all you do is to put one dot over here and one dot over there, and you have composite Shewa Segol. And Hatuph, which looks like our capital T in English, all you need to do, class, to make this a composite Shewa is to put two dots to the right-hand side of this capital T. And so what this will give you is, first of all, Hatuph Pathak, they call it. Hatuph means hurried. It's a Hebrew word that means hurried. Viewers, think of Usain Bolt running in the Olympics, whether it's 100 meters or 200 meters. Or think of the most outstanding runner in your country. And that is the idea of hurried. So this is not pronounced slowly, it's pronounced quickly. So it's called Hatuph Pathak. Hatuph Pathak, it's a composite Shewa, but it is pronounced quickly. It's pronounced in a hurry. Hatuph Pathak, hurried Pathak. Hurried, short vowel A. This now, I got the Segol much better here, but the simple Shewa, I didn't get it well because I really didn't see how I could put the point right up here. But this point is supposed to be up here, and this point is, yes, right here. So you put a simple Shewa consisting of two dots, one above the other, to the right-hand side of the vowel. And here the vowel is Segol. It's a Hatuph Segol, meaning hurried Segol, a hurried S sound. Hurried Segol. Then we come to Qames Hatuph. And there you have, because it was smaller in shape, I could put the 2 dots. To the right-hand side, it almost is how it should look. Simple Shewa to the right-hand side of Qames Hatuph is called Hatuph Qames or Horrid Qames. The Qames, or the composite Shewa, is put under these consonants only. Aleph, A, Kef, Ayin. Okay, let me see. Yeah, these are what is called the guttural consonants. Guttural meaning that they are produced at the back of the throat. And that is why they're called guttural consonants. So the composite Shewa is put under these consonants, Aleph, He, Kef, Ayin. The simple Shewa, on the other hand, cannot be written under these consonants. The grammatical rule is you do not put the simple Shewa under these consonants. Once you see a consonant like this, you have to put a composite Shewa. Now, let me illustrate with the whiteboard. Just need to erase a part of what is left on the whiteboard. Okay. Good. Coming to you shortly. Okay, now look on the whiteboard. I'm going to write the name of, I'm going to write the word that is translated into English as God. You might not have seen it in Hebrew class before because I've shown you a simpler form last trimester. But the most common form of the word in Hebrew that is translated into English as God looks like this. Starts with Aleph, and underneath the Aleph, it has the Katef Segol. That is, first of all, we put the Segol down. Hope you can see it on the camera. This is Segol upside down triangle. And then to the right of the Segol, you put the simple Shewa, which is 1 dot here and another dot there. And that is a horrid Segol, a Katef Segol. This is a composite Shewa. This is a guttural letter in the Hebrew alphabet, so it cannot simply take a simple Shewa. So it takes this composite Shewa. You won't find a simple Shewa alone underneath the guttural letter. Then the next consonant is Lameth, our L. The Aleph itself does not have any sound, so the sound begins with the horrid S sound. This is the L sound, the Lamed. Then you have the Kolem, which is written like this. That's the long O sound. Then you have He. Then you have long Hirik, the long I sound or E sound. And then the last word is Mem. looks like a square box with a thing that goes out to the left side of it, and you have Elohim, Elohim. So this would be only that you hurry it up. I'm just slowing it down so you can get it. L, O, H sound, E, M, Elohim. Okay, in English, it would be the E sound here. Then you have L, long O, H, long I sound, but it's E. I shouldn't have written it there, so let me just put my marker there. Just rub this out. Don't want to confuse things, so let me just write it again down here. So you have the Katef Segol, the quick E sound. Then you have the L, the Lamed, the long O. Don't tell me I'm getting in trouble again. Then you have H, then you have I, then you have M. That's why you might have come across this word in commentaries, Elohim. It's really a plural form. It can be translated as God, singular. When it is translated as God, singular, it is referring to the one true God. When it is written in a capital G in the English translations, it is referring to the one true God. But when it is written even in the singular form with a common G, even though it's not in the plural, it doesn't have an S at the end necessarily. Once you see the translators have written it or typed it like this, or it has been printed like this in the Bible, it is referring to a false god or an idol. Usually though, because the nations of the world who were not God's people at the time worship more than one God, you would have it written like this, gods, and it's a translation of the same Hebrew word, Elohim. This is a special word. It is used throughout Genesis chapter 1, and it brings out God's majesty. Majesty meaning his greatness, his great power, and his great wisdom in creating everything. Okay, so Elohim is used in the plural to bring out God's greatness. And usually you find people that are in royalty using the first person plural pronoun referring to himself or herself. I hear a lot of preachers in campaigns using it also, maybe because they are royalty. We are a royal priesthood. So they use it. They say, we believe, not referring to the church, but to themselves. Or we say, instead of saying I believe or I say. Okay, well, Elohim can be used in the plural to refer to God, bringing out his greatness.
But how can you identify with Hebrew? As English, you can identify the read and writing, or you can identify that in Hebrew.
How can you identify this?
Yeah.
The distinction between?
True God and...
All right, the context. For example, when God says at Mount Sinai, I am the Lord your God, he uses Elohim. And he says in the same breath, you shall have no other God, Elohim, no other God beside me. So the context makes it clear that the true God is speaking, and therefore you should put the capital G. And when he says no other God, you put the common G to distinguish this false God from the true and living God. Yes. So you can have the same Hebrew word, but the context in the Bible, whether in the chapter or whether in the book, makes it clear which God you're dealing with. Okay? Now, so under the guttural letters, the simple Shewa by itself cannot be written. The composite Shewa made up of the simple Shewa and some of the short vowels is what is called composite Shewa. Some Hebrew grammars call it compound Shewa, since you have not just the simple Shewa by itself, but a combination of the simple Shewa and some of the short vowels, whether it's pathak, a, or segol, e, or Qames Hatuph, a. It's a combination of the simple Shewa and some of the short vowel sounds. Okay. Any question so far? All right, I'm going to be changing the screen. I'm holding up this for anyone who is taking notes to take it down. But I'm changing the screen now. Now, there are grammatical rules governing the composite Shewa, as you can see over on the wall. When aleph or hey or kef or ayin is without a vowel at the beginning of a syllable, the composite Shewa sound is practically a half vowel. So here we find this aleph is at the beginning of a word, Elohim. It cannot take the simple Shewa by itself, so there has to be a compound or a bringing together of the simple Shewa and one of the short vowels. In this case, segol, the X sound. It comes at the beginning of a syllable. This by itself is a syllable. If I break this word down into its parts, the very first syllable here is this one, consisting of aleph and the composite Shewa, katef, or horrid segol. This is the beginning. This is the first syllable. And it is represented here in the English corresponding letters as e. Okay, so it is pronounced quickly. In this case, it would be a half short e. If it were a pathak, it would be a half pathak. If it was a Qames Hatuph, it would be a half of sound, but it is pronounced in a hurry so that the result is the sound of a half vowel. Not a whole vowel, but a half vowel, because you're pronouncing it in a hurry. Now, note well, number 2, when two simple Shewas occur together at the beginning of a word, the first simple Shewa becomes the short vowel hirik. Okay, I will need to illustrate this so you can visualize it. Take this off here. Okay, now let us say that you have a word. Okay. Let us say you have a word like ye, ru, sha, la, yim. This is our Jerusalem. Now, Yerushalayim, and you were to put a prefix consisting of lamed and a simple shewa underneath it. You have not been introduced as yet to the preposition le, but this preposition le means to. When you have a simple shewa coming at the beginning of a word with another simple shewa, as is this case, le Yerushalayim, the Hebrew grammar says it cannot work like that. So something has to be changed. And what is changed is this. This le, this simple shewa underneath the lamed or the el is removed. It has to be removed. It can't stay. And in its place, what is done is to put a short hirik underneath the lamed. Now there is another rule which you have not learned yet, but because I'm dealing with this, I'll have to show you. Yod is what is called a quiescent letter. You don't have to write it down because we'll be studying this later on. Quiescent. Now what quiescent means, it's related to the word quiet. It's a consonant that when it is in this kind of position, that there is another simple shewa right in front of it, not only does the first simple shewa become a hirik, a short I sound, but because this is a quiescent letter, it can become a quiet consonant. What happens is it loses its shewa also. So what you have happening in this case is something else. This simple shewa drops out. And what you are left with is a new vowel. This is the vowel long hirik. Notice this. The yod to the left of the consonant and the hirik on the hair, it gives you a long hirik sound. So instead of saying le, ye, ru, shalayim, you now will have to say li, ru, shalayim, which is to Jerusalem. Don't worry about not understanding fully, but I think I needed to bring this in to help clarify this. Let me start again with paragraph, the note well, number 2. When two simple shewas occur together at the beginning of a word, the first simple shewa becomes the short vowel hirik. But when a simple shewa comes before a composite shewa, Hatuph segol, the simple shewa, for example, the composite shewa Hatuph segol, the simple shewa is to be pronounced as the short vowel that is in the composite shewa. For example, the short vowel segol. I'm going to have to use another word to illustrate that. Okay, I'm still going to use the preposition to. So I'm writing it here again. Le, let us use Elohim. Aleph, and this is the composite shewa, Hatuph segol, the upside down triangle, and the simple Shewa to the right of it, and you have Lamed, the L sound, Kolem, which is the long O, He, then the long Hirik, the long I sound, and the last letter is Mem. Now, the rules of grammar says this cannot be. As I've mentioned before, when Le comes before a Shewa, it has to be changed from a simple Shewa to a short Hirik. But in the case of Elohim, you have a composite Shewa, not a simple Shewa. A further change is called for. So it can't simply be Hirik, since it's before a composite Shewa. This will have to take the short vowel that is from the composite Shewa. And what is the name of this short vowel that is in the composite Shewa? It's a goal. So instead of having simply a short Hirik, what you will need to have now is Segol put underneath here. But then there's a further problem. The further problem is that Aleph is also a quiescent letter. It's already quiescent from the beginning in that you don't pronounce it. But when it has a simple Shewa facing a composite Shewa, then the composite Shewa runs away. Don't know if it gets afraid. But it runs away. And even though this would be the next step for you to have, you have the Segol from the composite Shewa. Because this loses all that it has, loses not only the Aleph, but it loses its vowel. The rule says that this Segol has to be lengthened, and it would be lengthened to the corresponding long vowel. So the corresponding long vowel to Segol is the Sere, which can be written like this, 2 dots horizontally, 2 dots. So you have Le Lohim, to God. Le Lohim, to God. All right. It gets really complicated, but I wanted to illustrate that. Now, what we're going to be doing right now, don't worry, we're also going to have some other teachers to teach. They call it tutorials on YouTube. What I do when I'm putting the PowerPoint together, I look to see if there's any simple tutorial on YouTube that can further shed light on difficult grammatical rules. So we're now going to YouTube, another part of YouTube, to have a tutorial on composite Shewa. Yes, sir. You can go ahead and speak.
Actually, we've already seen these are the half vowels that we counted in our introduction to vowels and vowel chart. Remember, at the very bottom of the chart, you have a series of vowels. One looked like this, and then we had one like this. Then we had actually our Shewa that we've been doing so much with.
Yeah, we turn on the light to see if we can see it better.
Then for the U vowels, it wasn't anything.
Yeah,
remember, this is our A vowels, E vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. Now this is our Shewa. This is not a compound Shewa. This is the simple Shewa. These are the compound Shewas, these 3. And they're called the Hatuph Patach, Hatuph Segol, Hatuph Qames. And Hatuph just means hurried. And that's how they call them that, because this, the way you pronounce this, is like a hurried patach. So it's a, this is a hurried sagol, and this is a hurried kamet hatuph, this is a short o. Now, in terms of transliteration, we already looked at this, but it's got a brev or a breve over it like this, and this like this. This one is a raised, there's some room here, a raised M. It's pretty hard to see, isn't it? Raised E. These can also be superscripted sometimes in some texts. So these are compound Shevas. Sometimes they're called composite Shevas because they're composite of the corresponding short vowel and the Sheva. So composite Shevas are compound Shevas. Okay, now where do these things show up? They largely show up with the gutturals. Okay, the gutturals, if you remember from our guttural module, are, we have four of them. We have Aleph, Ayin, Chet, and He. And the reason they show up with these is because these, especially these pronounceable ones here, are pronounced near the back of the throat, and these, I guess, are easier to pronounce near the back of the mouth to match these consonants. It's a phonetic reason anyway as to why the compound Shevas appear with the gutturals. The gutturals will not take a simple vocal Sheva. Now, by that I mean the vocal Sheva that is a vowel. Okay, we're talking about the vowel one now, not the silent one. The one that is silent, remember we have the two. The silent Sheva is really a syllable marker, and it can show up, though it's rare, it can show up with gutturals. But what I'm really talking about here are these, the vocal Sheva. Instead of the vocal simple Sheva, it's called simple in contrast to compound, you will get these compound Shevas. Now let's look at an example. A good way to look at this is, let's take a verb, shavar. This means to break, okay? Simple verb to break. If I put this in the imperative or command form to tell someone break something, it is shavor. This is a standard way to take a verb. He broke becomes break. Now let us change this verb. There happens to be another verb that's identical to this, only it's got a guttural in the first position. So let's do that one. It's avar. Avar means to pass or to cross over or to pass through. When the Israelites passed through the Jordan or through the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, it's this that they do. It's this verb. And you can see here everything's identical. The only thing different is that we have a guttural here. All the letters are the same, including the vowels. Now, when I put this in the imperative form, this vowel is the same, just like that, shavor, but instead of ivor, we have avor. The guttural cannot take a vocal shava. Remember, this is vocal at the beginning of a word, beginning of a syllable. It's not a silent shava. The guttural can't take that, so it has a compound shava, composite shava. Note also that the one it takes corresponds to its family. This is an A vowel, the comments, and this is the Hatuph patach that corresponds to the A vowel, the first column. It does not take this one because this is really the short O, remember? We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about the distinction between the two vowels that use the same symbol, comments and the comments, Hatuph later. But this here is the short O. This is the short A, or the half A and the half short O. Now, gutturals, or not gutturals, but composite shavas or compound shavas can also show up with other consonants sometimes, particularly resh. You'll see it sometimes with resh. Example of that, Just a quick example here. Make sure I spell this right. Barahu. This means to bless. It's also an imperative, a command. This was singular, this is plural. So you'd use this if you're telling a group of people to bless. It shows up in Psalm 134, verse 2. Bless the Lord. Telling people to bless the Lord. So here we have a resh, and we have the Shewa showing up under there as well. So in summary here, really what we're saying is that gutturals are the ones that tend to take these composite Shewas instead of the simple vocal Shewa. And they will take one that corresponds to a vowel, generally anyway, a vowel in its family. So A vowels will take this, and O vowels will take this, and E vowels will take, I and E vowels will tend to take this. But it'll be a composite Shewa in any case.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let us get back.
Sir,
Yeah.
the last word, Baru,
Yes.
but I really can't understand the last Hebrew word in Baru.
You mean the last letter? All right. I'll talk about that shortly. All right. Yes. Yes. Let me. Can turn on the light for me, please. Thank you. Let me just write that word there and explain something.
You're tired. You need some okra? You some okra?
Yeah.
Okay, okra is nice. It's a nice thing to eat. Okay, now let us look at that form there. All right, I'm going to write that same word that you saw, and yes. All right, so Vara.
I see that like
Was it an I in here?
yes,
Iron was there?
No.
Oh, I know it is there. I think it's a cuff.
Yes, it's a calf.
Bara.
Then after calf.
Bara.
So put
Cool.
the dot.
All right. Now, it was a shurek, but what I've found out by looking on YouTube, when the Hebrews are teaching Hebrew, there are different ways to write shurek. The printed way is the way I write and put my PowerPoints together. That's the kind of way you'd see it in the Hebrew Bible itself, the printed form of the word, of the letter. But shurek can also be written like this. Like when you're just writing ordinarily, not when you're printing it in a book, but when you're writing ordinarily, it can be written like this. That's the way he had written it on the YouTube tutorial. But it's the same shurek, the U sound. All right. Good. Yes. And he also writes the shin differently. If you notice, he writes the shin differently from. He's using I think that is what you might call the ordinary way of writing, when you're writing with your pen. But if you're printing it, it's in a different shape, close to it, but in a different shape. Yes. All right. Now we're leaving compound or composite Shewa and going on to another Hebrew concept. Well, I don't think I should really go on right now. So God willing, next week we're going to be looking at Maqqeph, which means binding. It can also mean binder or connection, but it is something that happens in English also. Like when I was teaching about irregular plural forms, we were looking at such a thing as father-in-law, and you know how that was spelt? Father-in-law.
Oh, okay.
You have father, and then you have dash, then you have in, and then you have law. This actually joins these three separate words together to form one word. So it has the same function in English as we have it in Hebrew. Only that in Hebrew they call this by a different name, Maqqeph, which means binding or binder or connection. But the idea is the same. It makes three words or two words one word. So we'll be looking at that. We would have been looking at it tomorrow, but tomorrow we will not have class, as the director told me. He'll be at Patrick Gardens helping to set up for the campaign. So next week, Thursday, God willing, we will begin with Maqqeph. So I will be using the same lesson. It will still have the composite Shewa in the first part, but I'll be using the same lesson, and we will continue where I left off today. Okay, before you leave, let me just hand you back some test papers. Let me just hand back your test papers. All right. This is from the Communication Studies final exam. This is